We've seen a lot of new players rise up this year, but we've also seen some all-time greats saying goodbye to tennis. Welcome, tennis fans, to Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, Ivy Zhang, and in today's episode, I want to do an awards night for the ATP Tour. So yeah, let's just get right into it. This will be sort of similar to the episode I did last week for the WTA. I'm just going through the ATP Awards website. However, the only difference is that the ATP Awards are already done. So we already know who is the most improved player according to the ATP website. And so I'm just going to give my own input on who I think the most improved players are and just overall some thoughts on it. And if you guys want to hear the WTA, which is the female tennis tours, predictions and nominations, please feel free to check out last week's episode. So I want to start off with fan favorite, and I want to start off with fan favorite because that's what I did last episode. So for my fan favorite, I think Carlos Alcaraz. So there are obviously some nominations. Some nominations include Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, Rafael Nadal, but I think Carlos Alcaraz is going to take the crown for this one just because I feel like obviously Rafa has been in the game for such a long time, and everyone's who knows him knows how great of a player, how much of a legend he is. I feel like no matter where he goes, there will always be a crowd that's supporting him, and he's always going to be one of the favorites. But I think Carlos is slowly taking over that spot because I feel like because Rafa retired this year, Carlos is someone that a lot of people put faith into for him to sort of carry Rafa's legacy. And I think, obviously, I'm not comparing those two. I know they're both individual people, but I think Carlos is doing a great job at just hyping the crowd, hitting incredible shots. I feel like a part of why the crowd loves him so much is also because of his playing style. So his playing style is really different from Novak Djokovic and Jannik Sinner, where they both their goal is to win the game. But Carlos Alcaraz, he hits a lot of, obviously he's winning the game too, but he hits a lot of different shots, his drop shots or just some fantastic point because of how fast he is. He's able to run to every ball, so he's just, I would say, really a great person to watch if he's your if you're just starting tennis. I think he's a great tennis player for you to get into the sport. So yeah, that's why I feel like Carlos is the fan favorite. And the reason why I didn't say Rafa Nadal is because obviously he retired this year. And Jannik Sinner, I didn't say Jannik Sinner because I don't know, I just feel like because of the doping ban, whatever, I feel like there's always a what if, and I feel like a lot of fans, even though we know that he may not be at fault, there's just some fans who will still have that asterisk in their heads when thinking about Jannik Sinner. And now we'll move on to the match of the year. There's some nominees. So I guess my first nominee is Jannik Sinner versus Carlos Alcaraz, just any matches of that in general. And the other nominee is Novak Djokovic versus Carlos Alcaraz at the Olympics. And I think that is my clear winner for this because we've this year so far, I feel like Carlos Novak just has not had a great season, although he did play great. But I feel like he achieved his goal of winning the Olympic, but I feel like that's the only tournament where he really just broke all expectations and played the best he did this year. And I mean, Novak is Novak because even though he just really did not perform well this season, he was able to perform where he he needed to, and I think that was one of the matches that was like one of the highest quality we've seen Novak play. So I'm really interested in that sort of like that matchup. I'll leave a link for you guys if you guys want to check it out, but just like the whole moment is electric, and just the Olympic year for tennis is such a big deal because for tennis you really don't get to compete for your country that much except for like the Davis Cup and the United Cup. But I think just in general, the Olympics is such a big deal to the players. So yeah, okay. Now I want to talk about the best moment. So there are a lot of great moments, but I think my moment will have to go to, let's see. I think my moment will have to go to Novak Djokovic winning his Olympic title. I feel like this year, even though, as I said before, we haven't heard much from him, but just him winning that title he wanted for so long is still just something I'll remember forever. Just him dropping down to his knees, his hands shaking, and just trembling from how much he wanted that. And when he got it, it's just such like impressive moment to see, and it really touched my heart because you really don't get a chance. This is going to be his last chance, I'm pretty positive, of attending an Olympics, because one Olympics only happen every 4 years. So yeah, but I think that's just something that will never leave my mind. And I feel like this Olympics for both the women's side and the men's side are just so great. Like those two titles are like of people I will always remember, just because these two players fought so much for the gold medal. And I also now want to talk about the most improved player of the year. On the ATP website, they actually gave the most improved player to Pericard, and I kind of agree, just because he started the year really low in his ranking and he really improved a lot. But I think I want to give my most improved of the year to Taylor Fritz, because I think even though he started off like great, he started this year ranked like within the top 15, but I feel like this year he really achieved a lot, especially just going to the finals of US Open, which is something I feel like he really wanted for a long time. And I feel like this year there's just a little bit of just how do you say it, but like there's a little bit of him who just never wants to give up, and he's always playing his best. And I do want to say that like even though when he plays against Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic, he's still struggling a lot, because just I feel like he's maybe maxed out his game, and just his best game against Jannik Sinner and Djokovic is simply just not good enough. But I think he's really doing a lot, and I feel like he's someone that maybe have the potential of just winning an Australia title next year. And I also want to talk about two more players I think we should look out for more in the next season, which is Jack Draper and Arthur Fils. So I want to start off by talking about Jack Draper first. I think Jack Draper had a great run at US Open this year, even though, to be fair, he played against a lot of players who just did not play their best at all due to like a really long last round match. But I think just for him to even have that mental strength to go forward is still really incredible. And he did beat players like Taylor Fritz and Musetti, so he's obviously improved a lot. Also, speaking of Musetti, I think he's also a player that is most improved, even though I would say that he's just not a great player on like hard courts, like US Open type of courts, just because I don't know, I feel like he just doesn't suit his game. But to see him like next year at Wimbledon or at the French Open is something that I feel like he's going to make a deep run. And he just, before, when he plays against players like Jack Draper with Zverev, you just have a feeling that he's gonna lose the game. But really, I feel like this year he really proved to me that he is capable of beating players like Alexander Zverev, or like Casper Ruud. But like, to be completely honest, I feel like he still needs to work on his game against like the absolute best, like Jannik Sinner Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, but to be fair, that's everyone. And Arthur Fils sort of have the same feeling as Jack Draper. I feel like they're sort of similar, but I feel like Arthur Fils is just, he's more athletic, and I feel like he's just, obviously both of these players have their strength, like Jack Draper with his left hand spin, but Arthur Fils, I feel like when he's able to play great consistently, he's going to produce some fantastic results. And I also want to talk about my favorite, like my comeback player of the year. So I would give this to Matteo Berrettini, because I feel like he always knew that he's going to, like, he's had an incredible career, but because of his injuries and just him existing at the same time as Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and the Big Four, he's never going to go really deep into a tournament, maybe like winning like a Grand Slam title. He knows that it's sort of a hard thing, and I feel like he's come to terms with it, especially because he just had so many injuries, like pulling his abdominal muscles countless times, and him just, just not performing well against some of the best players. But I think this year when he played for Italy in the Davis Cup, it really just showed how much strength he has and how his forehand is just incredible. And I just think he's an incredible player just because of how much he went through. Last year, he didn't even get to be with the team. Like, he wasn't selected as the team, as a part of the team for the Davis Cup. He actually was at the venue, but he was watching courtside. So for him to actually come out and just play second singles for Team Italy and beat players like just some amazing players is just incredible. And speaking of players who can beat top-ranked players, there's someone that I really do want to mention, which is Bolte van de Zandschulp. So he's a player that, to be fair, I have not paid attention to before this season, but this year he's beat Carlos Alcaraz at the US Open. He's beaten Rafa Nadal for his last singles match. He's just insane. He doesn't show any emotions on his face, but when he's on, he's on. Like, if you guys saw that Carlos Alcaraz versus Bolte van de Zandschulp match, it was absolutely insane. Just for Bolte to go up to the net, like just dominate the points completely against Carlos Alcaraz at US Open on Arthur Ashe, the biggest stadium in the world, is absolutely insane. And he does not look fazed about it at all. And for him to beat Rafael Nadal in Spain, just incredible. Obviously, we know Rafa isn't the same player as he used to be, but still, just to beat Rafa Nadal in Spain, like, although there was like some Dutch fans supporting him, but just like obviously the majority of the stadium is supporting Rafa, is just pretty insane to me. So I feel like obviously I feel like when he's playing at his best, he's absolutely brilliant, but when he's not playing at his best, there's some things that just sometimes he's not that great, but I feel like he's something we should look out for. And the funny moments, this is going to be the last segment, but the funny moment, I think, will have to go to the bee invasion. I think I talked about it on this podcast before, but it was this year in Indian Wells, and I think it was between a match of, I think it was Carlos Alcaraz and Alexander Zverev. I'm searching it up right now. Yeah, and it was so funny. I can't, like, I'll leave an article for you guys to read, where like I'll also leave an article, but like randomly there was just bees on the court, and like they were swarming this like thing. I think it's like a thing that records like a camera or whatever, and it was like so many bees. There were so many bees, and like the umpire was like, there was a bee invasion and play was suspended. So that was something that I never knew was gonna happen, first of all. And like Alcaraz even said that was the most unusual match he's ever played. And then this guy just comes up. he just held like a bee vacuumizer, like vacuum, whatever, just starts vacuuming the bees. And I was like, what is happening? But he was like the hero, and everyone, when he left, everyone chose to take pictures, like asked him to take selfies. His name is Lance Davis. If you guys, I don't know, needs a bee remover, feel free to call him up. But yeah, and it was just really funny, a funny moment. I'll leave a video for you guys, but that's definitely the funniest moment. But speaking of that, I think that's all for today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know this is a little bit of a shorter one, but this season is well in its off season. But I can't believe actually Australian Open is about to start actually in like 2 months. And there's so many other tournaments like Brisbane and Auckland that I think are really worth watching. I think my next episode I want to talk about players that you guys should look out for in the upcoming season. Obviously I mentioned a few, but I think I just want to do one video, and I can't wait to preview Australia. I really think there's so much players that we should look out for. But yeah, if you guys haven't subscribed to my social medias, you should. It's at Tennis Traverse on Instagram and Twitter. That's at Tennis Traverse. If you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms or Spotify, please rate my show. And yeah, I'm sorry that this one is a little bit on the shorter side, but I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.